Second.
And seconded.
Okay.
Call roll, please.
Mr. Fergus.
Approve.
Ms. Crawley.
Approve.
Ms. Schmidt. And Ms. Benner.
Approve.
Thank you.
While we're at it, let's swear in staff. Okay. Alan, do you swear or affirm that this testimony you're about to give be true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
We have one continued application. It is COA 2500964. Address is 640 West Town Street. The owner is Whitechapel Apartments LLC, and the applicant is Maria Anderson. Staff report, please.
Righty. Okay. This project was originally submitted in 2022. Last month, the applicant presented an updated design with increased density achieved by reducing individual unit size and removing balconies, the rooftop deck, and certain design details. The board discussed the loss of architectural articulation, facade richness, and balconies that previously contributed to the project's visual quality. Concerns were raised regarding the lack of outdoor amenity space and reduced transparency at street level. Members emphasized the importance of maintaining design excellence consistent with the East Franklinton District Plan. Suggestions included reconsider window rhythm and facade articulation, reduce the brown siding to 2 stories instead of 3, explore options for small communal or green spaces, incorporate murals or art installations facing the neighborhood consistent with the district's creative character. The applicant is following up this month with the following major design changes. The project is still 100% affordable housing for the unsheltered population, providing a total of 105 units. 2 units are from the existing house. The triplex and multiplex is eliminated from the project scope and is replaced with a pollinator garden. Most of the parking has been replaced with additional units. And lastly, a mural has been added to the scope on the elevations as a placeholder to show intent. The applicant has already been in talks with the artist, but is still awaiting a reply from ODOT on whether a mural would be appropriate at this location. And I'll just say that I'm waiting on a reply myself. It's been weeks. The previous design was a 5-story mixed-use market rate residential building consisting of 42 living units and grade parking facilities for residential use. The remaining amenities include a shared laundry room in the lobby area and bike storage on all levels of the building. The previous triplex building has been, oops, that should not be in there. That has been eliminated. Sorry about that. The East Franklinton Plan and Development Standards apply to this project to ensure pedestrian-oriented design, architectural quality, and compatibility with surrounding uses. The shift to 100% affordable housing is a significant public benefit and aligns with broader community housing goals. However, the East Franklinton District Zoning Code requires the EFRB to evaluate design consistency regardless of proposed affordability. The application is generally consistent with the recommendations of the East Franklinton Plan. The applicant has attempted to address the board's comments by including a mural on the neighborhood facing facades, reducing the amount of parking, adding landscape to the entrances on the east facade, and adding a pollinator garden and benches for residents to sit. Additionally, the applicant shows high quality materials and a 4-sided architectural treatment. Staff note the removal of the triplex. Staff requests that the triplex be added back into the scope of the project. The East Franklinton Plan places significant emphasis on maintaining and providing affordable housing options for both current and future residents. More specifically, the plan recommends continuing infill development of affordable single-family and duplex housing within the Dodge Park subdistrict. Staff recommends approval with conditions. The condition that the applicant remove the pollinator garden and add the triplex back into the scope of the project. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? How do you want to handle Mr. Way's comments?
I can go ahead and read that into the record now.
Okay.
If that,
all right.
Um,
This be the comments of board member Kim Way.
yes.
Okay.
Nolan, as a follow-up to my previous email, I could not make the meeting next week due to a conflict client meeting. However, I wanted to let you know how disappointed I am in the recent submission for 640 West Town Street. They have totally changed the plan again. The architecture is not where it needs to be. It looks like a budget hotel and not consistent with the neighborhood. What we originally reviewed and approved is an appropriate building for that site and the community. We should not back off that approval. We gave increased height and density based on the quality of that submission. I agree with staff's comment about not removing the multifamily house. I don't understand elimination of the parking. It says waived, so much more to comment on. I trust that the board will continue to push for a better project and not just be seduced by the affordable housing label. Just another urban developer trying to make a project pencil out of the economic environment by going to the lowest common denominator of cost while pushing over maximum density. And just really quickly on the comment about the parking, I did receive, I believe it was either yesterday or the day before, just the message that the parking reduction was in fact waived. And this is a support letter from the director of parking and transportation. So just an update on that. Thank you.
That kind of limits our jurisdiction as far as parking is concerned.
Yeah, yes.
Fair enough. All right.
Yeah, I do have one question. I can't quite tell. I apologize. I haven't read through all of this. Is it waiting? I guess, is there still parking? Or is it just waiting?
There are 4 parking spaces.
Three
Three?
parking spaces.
Oh yeah, one's a trash, right?
I'm so sorry to interrupt. Mr. Fergus, can we swear in the applicants just really quick before we make comments? Sorry. Thank you.
All right. Applicants, state your name for record, please.
Brian Higgins.
Maria Anderson.
Brian White.
And do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, Steve.
Okay, so noted. All right. We're right with the big guy.
Thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, so 3 parking spaces. The population is 100% coming out of homelessness, so it's the expectation that they don't have vehicles. Brian has actually worked with this population in the past, so you want to maybe talk a little bit about your experiences.
I just worked with a lot of tenants coming from the Veterans Association, CMHA, Community Shelter Board, Salvation Army, YMCA, and a litany of others. And the vast majority of these individuals do not have vehicles, so they are seeking housing primarily.
Is this a partnership?
It is not a formal partnership with one of those agencies, no, but we had submitted letters of recommendation from some of those organizations that they're very excited about this building to be able to house more of their population.
And will anyone within an income frame be able to apply, or is it only folks who are coming, like they're transitioning out of experiencing homelessness?
So the intent is to have voucher holding tenants so that they can be assisted in this area because the rents in that section of Franklinton have gone very high. So this would allow for workforce housing and or individuals who came from homelessness or other backgrounds that need help to reside in the area. There's a grocery store going in down the street, so they'll be able to walk to that. We're talking with CODA as well about transportation options. So there's a lot of other things separate from the parking being removed that will be there to help and assist them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nolan, could we also be able to pull up the original renderings, and is there a way to pair them next to it? I don't want to speak for.
That's what, yeah. Here we go.
It sounds like it's
I think that's Kim's primary objection is the change in appearance
correct.
and the windows in particular.
So if we can help advocate for him.
Well,
We modified the windows.
In respect to his comments, he's absolutely right. Real estate development is an exercise in mathematics at its core. So if you can get a building approved, as we did in 2022, and then you find it's unbuildable, it doesn't do us any good. It doesn't do any, because, we're obviously trying not to lose money. I've done that. It's awkward. But So yeah, so we have changed the windows to try to articulate them in a better way. You know, we're going to add in this mural. We've identified a muralist. She actually has her work being displayed at Wild Goose right now. So she's familiar with the community, has done a lot of work. Actually, a couple murals I'm aware of on the hilltop too. And so, you know, we tried to add in some outdoor space and do different things that, you know, from the comments we received last time. But yeah, at the same time, we have to be mindful of development costs. And so I'd love to have an outdoor deck again, like we did in 2022, but it's an expense that doesn't generate revenue. And I mean, it's like that simple sometimes. And so same thing with the balconies. I think the balconies are lovely and we love to do them. We did them at Out of Town, you know, which was one of our projects. And that was great, but that economics were different then. And so we're trying to find a way to allow this project to move forward, or any project to move forward. And so, yeah, we did other things, as Nolan indicated, by diminishing the size of the units, so that they're essentially studios and one bedrooms now. Because again, like, you know, we live in interesting economic times, right? And so in the post-pandemic world, we saw interest rates actually continue. When we got this approved in 2022, we were in the middle of several interest rate increases, if you guys recall. And so even just the lending environment was different, to say nothing of the materiality, the challenges we have now with tariffs. You know, our steel comes from China, our cabinets come from Vietnam, our wood comes from Canada. And I don't know what the tariffs are today or what they'll be tomorrow. And so, you know, I understand, you know, his comments, but I always thought architecture is like art in so much as it's subjective. So duly noted, but I don't share his sentiments, obviously, or we wouldn't be sitting here. And I don't know, Marie, do you have any other additional architectural comments since you're?
We did update the windows from the last time we came in, so they're, you know, more articulated. Before we just had two side by side single hung windows, and now they're, you know, a little bit more designed and they do operate. So that was an improvement. We added some trim work. We lowered the brown per the request, and we, you know, making the mural building. That was previously as well.
Nolan, do you have the submission from last month so we can compare it to this month?
I, yes, can get that really quickly. Just one second.
Can I ask a question? Knowing that there was parking in the last meeting, and sort of looking that now your tenant is most likely not going to have a car. When did that change? Or I'm guessing last time you guys were here, there was what happened in that month of who our tenant is now?
Mr. Goodwin's comments at the end of the last meeting. And so with the city saying that, hey, you know, I always thought the parking overlay in East Franklinton was counterproductive to the city's goals of creating a more affordable housing units, because you know, invariably you can't park it to the requirements that they indicated they wanted, then you're punished economically, which then of course gets passed on to the tenants, which makes it harder to create affordable housing. So when he said that there would be a waiver for affordable units, we thought, well, maybe here's an opportunity. We can go 100% affordable and not be punished. I think the fees we would have had to pay in the parking, if we were to submit this design last month, was like $1.5 million. And it's just dead money, you know? So the city's change in policy allowed us to rethink the footprint of the building and the parking overall.
So then do you work, I'm sort of new to this, so then do you work with the city on these tenant, or like we were kind of talking about partnerships, or how does this align, how do you find that tenant that?
Yeah, so for example, I work directly with the VA, all their case managers, their director wrote a letter of recommendation, and their litany of other nonprofits. So it's not a formal partnership. So it's not I have a contract with them and they are dedicated to fill these units, but it is a partnership that I've done for almost 15 years, housing these individuals. So
like CMHA owns some of their own properties, and then there's other properties where they have given people vouchers and they can take those vouchers to a third party owned property. And then they pay up like a discounted amount of the rent based upon what their income is. CMHA fills in the gap between what they can afford to pay and what the market rate is. So the developer, the owner of the building, receives, you know, essentially market rate rent. The tenant gets to pay something that's reasonable within their means. And yeah, and HUD kind of makes up the difference through grants to the housing
Okay.
authority.
Another, and Nolan, I don't know if I'm jumping too far ahead, because I am thinking back to last month, and then we were also talking with the zoning, that gentleman that was here talking about the zoning and how each neighborhood, will have certain amount of like affordable housing or a certain amount of mixed use. So is this a piece of that where Franklinton will have, or are we too far ahead? Or we're not there yet to say like how, because I also see as more development comes,
Yeah.
knowing, right, we're using numbers like 1.5 million for parking, or you could waive 1.5 million for parking and do affordable housing, which, so I could see a lot more development coming through, similar, like looking at these sort of numbers. So I guess can you help me? grasp
Yeah.
this?
A lot of it is not in the view or the purview of East Franklinton
Yeah.
Review Board.
Okay,
So as far as the zoning is concerned, that's a little ways away.
right.
It will have some changes to East Franklinton, but overall, we were already a mixed use district.
Mhm.
So that will remain. And our East Franklinton Creative Community District plan will always be above the zoning. So we're essentially, it's kind of like a layer, if you will. Like the first thing that we would worry about is our creative community district plan
Mhm.
as guidelines.
Right.
And then the zoning
Okay.
would come after
And
that.
then affordable housing is the same as mixed unit, correct? Is that what?
Not necessarily. I think one of the only differences that East Franklinton might see is a potential increase in height if the applicant is wanting to build a certain percentage of affordable units.
Okay.
So it's really going to depend project to project. Clear as mud. I apologize, but
It's just so interesting. And I understand 100% where you guys are doing the numbers, you're looking, of seeing this type of waiver. Or how many units do you guys have? How many residents do you expect to have here?
105.
105.
That includes the
Yeah.
existing house.
Yeah.
And I just want to point out, we also have 105 interior bike parking spaces for the residents as an amenity.
Okay.
And that's
Okay, so
one
you
reason
added in
why we
bike
have
parking.
the waiver. We had to
Okay.
provide a list of things, and that's what Justin reviewed for this waiver. We also provided letters of support from the entities that Brian mentioned as well. And Nolan, I included those in the
yes,
packet. Okay.
yes, they should be included as well. And I'll say as far as parking is concerned, East Franklinton, and there's only one other district, and that's Short North. Both of those are the only two districts that have special parking agreements. So that's part of the reason why you're seeing this waiver. There was a system set up to where if parking services was able to, if an applicant wanted to essentially eliminate their parking, a fee would be incurred in these two special parking districts. It's kind of always been that way, but the only difference now is that parking services is basically saying we're not collecting fees anymore. And we've kind of done that throughout the past couple of years with different projects. We've approved projects that have zero parking. All the stuff on Walnut Street, I think the other apartment building that was on West Town as well. So it's always kind of been a practice. But just not collecting those fees is really the major difference.
I have a question. Was it always 105 units?
No, it's actually, I think it's changed almost every time we've been here as we try to react to different comments and other challenges, like, the limited access right of way from ODOT was an early challenge, right? As we moved the building and then it kind of screwed up the footprint, and so we try to adapt on the fly.
So are we from this 2022 submission, or even the one earlier this year? Are these like apartments, are these smaller than they were last
Yes.
month? as well?
No, they're the same size as last month.
They're the same size as last month,
Smaller
but
than
smaller than 2022.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
We were able to add more after removing the parking, so we can house more individuals.
And I was going to say, just for a little bit of clarity, I did put up, this is the submission from last month. And the site plan, you can see that there's parking here. And this updated this month that where parking was, is now taken up by units.
And just to
If that
further
helps.
clarify, to piggyback there, no. There was already housing above that parking, but now we're able to put it on the first floor as well. So it just replaced the parking lot, the surface parking lot. So if that makes it clearer from a bird's eye view, there was already the same structure was there, floors 2 through 5, but now it's on floor 1 as well. And a lot of our tenants are disabled, and Mobile is another nonprofit that I've worked with for a long time that has, it's very difficult to find housing for wheelchair accessibility, and all of these units will be accessible. So, well, they will be able to house individuals who have disabilities, whether it's loss of limb or other ailments. So,
Okay.
And I also want to point out in that space where we had parking, now we have raised garden beds for the tenants so they can have their own gardens, and there will be an accessible path. So anyone on a wheelchair will be able to, at least at one side of the garden beds, have their own garden.
All right, discussion. Board, how do you feel about the location of this building? I know that last month we had discussed the possibility that this was a gateway feature to the community. On the other hand, it's also in terms of having balconies. These are balconies that, if used, would feature a lot of noise from 315. A lot of noise, and 70. I mean, you're right there. So I do wonder about the functionality of having balconies in the first place.
I remember
Thoughts?
last one, Lauren made a good and interesting point, how, at least I think it's Lauren, where it's not quite a balcony, but it looks like a balcony, like they could open a door.
Like a Juliet.
Juliet balcony.
That was,
Oh,
Yeah.
she does.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good. Yeah.
I mean, was there any consideration,
There was, and so based on the location of like exhaust and intake vents, we just cannot have those per code. They would be too large of a space, and we don't have enough facade to have a Juliet balconies.
I think what my concern with the project is that it's a project limitations in search of an audience. It feels like, right? If we look at the 2022, and this is both are good looking buildings. Okay, I'm not like a architectural snob. I think a building is a building, and it looks good. It looks good. But what it does feel like is that this original building is no longer feasible from a fiscal standpoint, right?
Correct.
In so many ways that now it's kind of turned toward affordability. Like, as in, oh, well, we're never going to be able to rent these, if you will, to a person who isn't in a vulnerable circumstance. So now we want to do this for people in vulnerable circumstances.
I would
And
say that
I just want to get the whole thing out.
Go ahead.
And as a result of that, the amenities, in my opinion, seem to shrink. I don't think that the amenities shrinking should be necessarily put on the population of people this would serve. You might not have a vehicle yourself, but you will have friends, you will have family. You know, like there's plenty of people in homes that don't have vehicles, but they have a parking space in front of their home. You know, like so. I'm just I'm trying to advocate, if I can, for those vulnerable people, knowing that the original project looked like this. Because anybody who was looking at the situation, I believe, would be like, "Oh, that's what y'all had, and this is what y'all got." Well, of course, this is the community that you're interacting with, but also, I don't think that community doesn't deserve parking or doesn't deserve, my point last month was some outside space, some ability to breathe and like see outside and be, put your head outside at least. Um, I mean, I understand fiscally and from a business standpoint how how this is turning and the trajectory. I just don't necessarily. I want to make sure that when we say affordable, we're allowing for the entire depth and breadth of affordability, not just people in programs that are safety nets, like last case safety nets. I want to say everybody from those programs into people who just can't afford necessarily another kind of complex in Franklinton. So not, if you will, not just vouchers would be able to have this opportunity, but also working class people who are in a circumstance where they're kind of the in-between in those.
Okay, so my comment at the beginning regarding parking, question I had to Nolan, I don't think that we can fairly consider parking here, one way or the other. Is that, would you say that? We can or we can't?
Technically, parking is not within, the number of spaces is not within our purview. However, if there is a project that doesn't seem to either have too much or enough parking, that could be a request from the board.
Okay, so we can't.
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
Yes, you're correct. You're correct, we can.
Technically, yes.
Thank you, Nolan, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It really essentially is up to the applicant. But we have purview over the project, if that makes
Okay,
sense.
all right. Yeah.
I mean,
My
I know,
job is chair to
Understand,
ferret that.
understand, yes.
I know that we can't control that. I mean, it's not like people won't have cars around them and they won't be parking someplace,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah, there is parking on the streets close by.
oh, I know, like, knowing that there is parking on the streets nearby, but there's a minimal amount of parking on the streets nearby. And we know that because we're there every day, all day, right? So we're able to see the actual flow of traffic in that area. I'm worried about in the evenings when there is more parking. I get what we're saying, that this population has less vehicles, but I don't believe in any way, shape, or form that there's 105 people that are going to be living here with no access to a vehicle or no want for transportation.
I mean, some of these nonprofits would respectfully disagree because a lot of these individuals do not have vehicles, don't even have a house.
Yeah.
So, I mean, housing is the priority here and the focus to get people off the street, to get people into a safe living condition. Parking, I agree, would be a total bonus. But unfortunately, on this project, we have to focus on housing humans, not just vehicles.
I mean, I do understand that, but like, there's a lot of advocacy in your statement for this to be less than a 30-day-old plan. That's what I'm saying. So it's like, I understand what you're saying, but I also can guarantee you that if this is just are we saying that this 2022 option is no longer available, so now we're going to house the homeless? Because that's what I hear.
So
I hear we can't make money here, so we get the homeless involved. And I'm going to be 100% with you. Anybody who lives in Franklinton would hear the same thing.
So, I mean, this is not my first project housing the homeless. So it was a pivot, yes, from the prior project that was market rate. You are correct. However, we had to adapt to our circumstance and we can't control the market and the environment with lending and material costs and such. My background is primarily affordable housing. So I own a low income housing tax credit compliant portfolio. I've worked with all these nonprofits for a decade to 18 years. So this is not my first foray into this.
I don't think I suggested it was.
No,
I'm just saying
commenting
that
it was
I'm
tough-
literally just saying that you're 100% of that population being without a vehicle or without a loved one with a vehicle is a kind of a blanket statement, and it just doesn't allow for the variations in people's worlds and lives. I'm not necessarily saying no. I'm just saying this, when we start with this project is designed specifically for this reason, it's like, no, project was designed for that. Actually, this is where we're at as a result of the time going by. It just feels like an afterthought. Does that make any sense? Affordability feels like an afterthought in this conversation, but it's being presented as if it's the forethought.
I'm an afterthought, but it certainly is a pivot. I mean,
Pivot.
it's a pivot.
Yeah,
I mean,
like,
and that's the word you used exactly, is a pivot. It's a pivot from market rate to affordability.
affordability, yeah.
And yes, it's clearly, I think it's beyond fair argument that you're telling us that it's economic considerations that have driven that
100%.
pivot.
Well, and I even feel it's a pivot from last month. I'm not,
That's all I'm
it's
saying.
now it's affordable with parking, and now we're gonna be partnering maybe with
Homeless
nonprofit.
and
It's now even,
veterans. It's like, it keeps.
No, last month it was all for, I mean, we did submit the letters, and it was all still for the unsheltered population last month. The only thing that changed was that we got a waiver based on our meeting last week with Justin.
said you don't need parking,
Parking,
so
yeah.
then
So then
just
we-
more.
So then we just added more, but it's always been for the unsheltered population.
That was part of the.
Okay,
plan
sorry, I
last
don't-
time. Yeah, we don't remember, I don't remember.
That's
that.
okay.
It was.
Just be-
You were saying in 2022, this
No.
was.
No, even last month. I don't
Okay,
remember.
we're
us
saying
talking.
last month this was. So at what point in time between 2022 and last month did it shift?
Early this year,
Okay.
After 2.5 years of not being able
Yeah,
to get
there
this
was-
to pencil.
there was no way to build on the site a market rate project with what we had done.
Talked to a
previously.
dozen general contractors, tried to negotiate with the city about reducing the parking fee, which we got a little bit of, leeway on, but there was still hundreds of thousands of dollars that were just going to go into this nebulous parking fund that no one can tell me where those resources go. And so, yeah, when we learned that the city was going to, waive the parking requirements for affordable units, we thought, well, there's an opportunity here maybe, so we look at unit size in the interior, which, obviously doesn't affect the design, but what could we do? What comments could we incorporate? We couldn't, necessarily incorporate every comment that we received last month, but we did try to do as many as we thought were reasonable. And then again, yeah, I mean, you got to think about the budget to some extent always. So that's a consideration, but not the only one.
Let's tackle, can we tackle the parking here for a moment? Because really the discussion of where we were now versus where we were then doesn't get us to the point where we can provide guidance or,
Yeah.
what we want to see.
I don't know if this will help the temperature on parking or not. But on Grub Street, I mean, I don't know, Nolan, it's the building that's a couple of houses down from me, that it's now the financial group.
Mhm.
Because they didn't expand parking, obviously, folks in the neighborhood, which is just a block over, right, Rich in town, expressed some concern over parking. So I'm not sure how they did it, but they made an agreement with the city that their overflow parking from like their employees would park at Dodge Park, so they wouldn't take up residential parking spots. Now, I know that's a business making an arrangement, and I'm not sure if that could also be an agreement that could be made.
Happy to have that
Maybe
conversation.
Providing parking there that a block, 2 blocks over,
Mhm.
there could be a potential partnership.
It's a good idea.
So that parking could maybe be provided in that capacity that would, still allow for folks, because even though transportation is good in Columbus, there aren't great connections to employment hubs, right? Like, they're good, they're getting better, but they aren't quite there. So I mean, to your point, maybe they don't have access to a car right now, but maybe the idea is, I mean, they're having shelter over their heads, they can have some stability and, their opportunities continue to increase. So I'm not sure on the parking situation, if that can help change the temperature on the exploration of a partnership like that, where there is, or like the churches, down on Grub that's near Broad Street, right? Like I think it's a charter school now, right? Like after 3 o'clock, they probably aren't using that parking lot. Like that could be a potential pivot from no parking allocation to, and again, I know the parking's not under our purview, but hopefully.
Well,
lend
as
some-
Nolan said, we have some,
Yeah,
we have some.
I was going to say, in this case, we do have a little bit of leeway because there was parking proposed last month, and now there is a change in that. So we are able to make comments on that. It would have been different if it had already been approved at 0 parking back in 2022. That can't be carried over, but yeah.
not sure, like, does that help change or?
I mean, I'm just worried from a functional level for the neighborhood, right? Like, I know we can't think about how many more, like, we can't necessarily say how many more fees might be waived or parking might be waived in lieu of the fee. But if we think about already now, it's kind of hit or miss as far as finding parking once people are home from work.
Would a limited number of, because, okay, first of all, question. You gained extra units by eliminating parking from last month to this month, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Would it be of interest to the board to suggest a limited number of spaces that can be used, say 10, 20?
There should be, I would feel, to try, maybe it gets approved, maybe it doesn't, but just so they know, to your point, we live and breathe this neighborhood and it's hit or miss.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that easy to find and adding, there will be
Guest-
people. Yeah,
Basically guest spaces.
that's right. Yeah, we should propose some type of, knowing that there was, I think, I would feel very comfortable doing that, whether it's recognized or not. It's,
Because I'm thinking about all of the possible circumstances that the people who are going to be living here could be going through. If they are veterans, if they are in a circumstance where they require PCAs, if they require checkups, where the nurse, where are the people who would come check up on them? Where would Meals on Wheels park? Like, where would any of these, if you have a personal care van that needs to park, where is there handicap parking that would allow for that? I'm just like,
We have a
I
handicap
don't
spot
assume
and
that anybody doesn't need parking, is
Yeah.
what I'll say.
we have a handicap spot, and there's a drop off that could have.
Uh-oh,
So we took that into account.
really serious about the
but
bills.
A lot of those support services aren't staying there for a long time, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
We tried to think of that as well. But we are trying to house as many people as we can. That is the focus, is to help people.
So
I
A lot of these
completely
people, the
understand that.
majority of these individuals do not have employment. They do not have vehicles. They live off SSI or other means.
Mhm.
So there are going to be some workforce individuals that may or may not have a vehicle. However, knowing that this facility doesn't have a lot of parking, the VA and other agencies will refer individuals who need a place that do not require parking.
Okay.
So it is not mandatory that all of these people seek housing with a parking spot. Just wanted to say.
I'm not saying that. I was saying that going from how many parking spaces we had to 0 and then saying that's because of the population is kind of a blanket statement and doesn't make any sense to me as a person who has also worked with these populations, because they might not have a vehicle, but somebody in their orbit, somebody in their constellation of caretakers will need to park at some point in time at their location. And why shouldn't they have that option and ability? That's all I'm saying.
I
So
feel
even
that-
if it is 10 spaces, it's 4 spaces is enough people to probably work on the ground, right? Which means that nobody there gets a space. 4 spaces is in the handicap space. If one of those is a handicap space, that's 3 spaces. So that's property manager, maybe groundskeeper, and one other person.
would it be financially feasible to eliminate a couple of ground units and add some spaces?
Would you like us to eliminate the pollinator garden,
Excuse me?
that land?
If that'll give us 10 spaces, then maybe that'll
that's-
have to happen.
That could be an option if we could get approval.
What are we eliminating?
to cut
The
in parking from
pollinator garden.
West-
Okay.
That's one of your recommendations.
Yeah, staff's recommendation, the pollinator garden was added because the triplex was demolished. We're recommending to not demolish the triplex.
Therefore, we don't
Therefore,
demolish the triplex, then we don't need the pollinator garden.
Right.
And we can.
Well, you
make-
can't demolish something
turn the
that's not
parking-
there.
Yeah.
Where does that, but I do love your comment of where do you go? So they're gonna have to get out, where, they're gonna have to get out of
Homes.
their homes.
yeah.
So where do you go? And if you don't have this garden, that's like, I just need some fresh air, you
Agreed.
can't open your windows.
They can open the windows.
Or you can open, or
My
like
next
the,
question, actually.
you can't, like, okay, so you can open your window.
It's like a
But you-
sliding mechanism.
If you
Hang
pull up
on.
the site
How
plan,
do we,
there's-
how do the windows operate? Let's talk about that for a minute.
there, if you zoom in on the exterior elevation, you'll see that the window to that smaller window, and there should be dashed lines on there. I don't know if you can zoom in a little bit more, but it will swing out.
The small window.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
thin one.
Okay. I'm still gonna raise the challenge of, I like what you said, Rashida, in the sense of you will want to leave you will need fresh air and leave your apartment. And so if they now don't have this garden that they could possibly sit in and get some sun,
Yeah.
which we should all be doing, for parking, that's also, I'm concerned about that too.
If you go to the site plan, so we have benches all around the building. We have those raised garden areas. We also have picnic tables surrounding. So
And there's one on the west side of the building. as
there's
well.
a picnic table in the middle of those
You go down on the
spaces.
bottom left.
Yeah,
there's-
the bottom left, there's
Yep.
another picnic table. We tried to scatter them. There's a bench there if you're,
And how many picnic tables and how many benches do we have?
so, and I am showing that, I think on the cover sheet.
Yeah, there we go.
There's 5 picnic tables, 7 benches, 12 4x8 raised garden beds, 3,000 square feet of pollinator gardens. And that was the intent, since we weren't providing these balconies, that we'd make these like community spaces, and there'd be, you could sit on your own, or there'd be different opportunities of seating and groups that could be provided around that entire building.
I mean, the only reason the pollinator garden even got involved in that conversation is because it was presented as essentially the only feasible option,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we asked, is there a way to get rid of a few units and add parking? And we were informed that no, the pollinator garden would probably have to go. And so really, I just continued because I'd like to see at the end of that conversation. But I do believe that parking overall, if we have to say overall, as far as livability, is going to be a little bit more important than a pollinator garden. I want both. But if we can't have both, and they're saying that the pollinator garden would have to go for there to be those spaces, then
I have a couple questions. One, we know historically, and we talked about it at the last meeting, that City of Columbus has never collected a penny from in lieu of fees for parking reduction. Was that a consideration when you made this pivot? And to that end, was there consideration about the benefit of doing some mix of market rate housing and affordable units to maybe fill some of the gap in the financial costs from the 2022 submission to now? Now, again, I know that's not in our purview to tell you how to run your business, where you're pulling your finances from. I guess I hear what the board is saying and I hear what you're saying. And so in my brain being a city planner, I'm like, how can we bridge both of these things? and come up with some actual recommendations for you. Cause I feel like we're all sharing our ideas, and it's feeling a little challenging to start thinking of like, where can we come together and give you some really solid suggestions and feedback.
I did not know that the city has never collected in lieu fees. My assumption was that we wouldn't get a building permit until we wrote a check or something. Yeah, no, we never got that far in our conversations. So, and that doesn't mean they can't go back. I mean, why write these regulations if you're never going to enforce them? I was surprised to hear that. Yeah, and as far as mixed income, we didn't have significant discussions about it. I think Rita Parise used to tell me before she retired that she didn't believe in mixed income because she thought that you'd have a hard time leasing market rate units because market rate people don't want to live with people who just recently were homeless for a bunch of reasons that may or may not be true. Now, when the city adopted their tax abatement for some level of affordable housing, that seemed to be successful, but 80% of AMI, which will trigger your tax abatement, is $1,400 for a one-bedroom apartment, which doesn't feel particularly affordable to me. So that even what we do as a policy in the city of Columbus and what I've taken advantage of in tax abatements for other projects, yeah, it's mixed income, but it's like by definition, right? Maybe not by how people live. So that's all these things go in my mind. I too am a city planner to inform, like, well, how would this work? And we don't know for sure, but there are enough concerns that we thought, well, maybe we just sort of focus on one aspect of a population on the housing continuum instead of trying to make it be something else that is riskier, frankly. And, it's an exercise in math, like I said, and also in risk mitigation, right? Because then I got to go to the bank and explain this, and they're going to go, why would you do this? And I said, well, whatever the reasons are, which they may or may not appreciate. And when they're underwriting this, they're underwriting risk, a bunch of different risks, the risks that we'll default, the risks that we won't be able to lease up, all this stuff. It's all a concern of theirs. So, to the extent we can make them more happy too, like that's always in the back of our minds. So, but that's development. So it's okay. It's like, this is part of the process. So is that, and it's just the way it is.
I just wonder, because again, I don't know what the financing structure looks like for the Gravity Building or the River Ridge, where they have some affordable units to that. So that was just, I guess I'm curious. And then with the feedback from the staff report of re-including, those houses. I mean, I know we're not done with parking. I think if we just tackle the parking thing, I'll leave my 2 cents here. I do think I think we should advocate as a board for more parking. Right? Because I think you're right, passing the buck to either Dodge Park or wherever is really kind of kicking the can down the road.
Can I add something that may help your decision? The triplex that has been removed, it was not demolished. It was never built, just to be clear. So the single family is still there and will remain. But the triplex, we found out in pretty recent conversations with general contractors that the cost per unit is extremely high. More so, building each unit is almost as expensive as building a single family house for each unit. So it's cost prohibitive. We listened to the feedback of the board, and so we put in the garden, listening to the feedback of the need or desire for more parking. That's why I mentioned that could be parking, but we listened to what you said last time. That's why we put in the garden, because the cost was extremely prohibitive. It was almost 1.5 million for 3 units.
So the single family home, but not the triplex, would remain.
Yes, the single family is remaining.
I will still be a huge advocate for whether it's a pollinator garden or outdoor spaces. My entire research in grad school was on rates of loneliness in the Franklinton neighborhood, in the aging population. And the one single thing that I heard over and over and over and over again from this population was, if I could design an outdoor space, it would look something like this. And having access to the outdoor space reduces rates of loneliness, increases rates of connectivity.
Agreed.
I mean, I do love what you did, and I wonder if there is a way to, even if it's, how can we have both, right?
I really liked your idea of the facility down the street. You know, I'm happy to have any conversations to see if we can get some kind of agreement where there is parking at certain hours or overflow, or even if support services are coming, you know, and have a short walk. I understand it's not ideal.
Yeah,
but
not to throw a wet blanket on that, but I had all those conversations in 22 and they didn't go anywhere. Not that there aren't changing attitudes or whatever, and we could always revisit it, but it makes me concerned, I guess, too, like, they're gonna yell at me. Yeah, if we took the garden out and put in parking, we need a curb cut in the middle of the block, and that horrifies me from a design aesthetic perspective.
And I
So-
would just also speak on that.
Yeah.
Some rules of the East Franklinton plan is that parking, we want it to be hidden. So there's just keep those guidelines in mind as well when we're talking about parking.
This would be pretty far from hidden.
Very far from
You can
hidden.
screen it and do other things, but it's still,
This month was.
gotta access it.
That's from Sandusky. Was that right, Nolan? And where's the access to the 3 spaces?
Sandusky.
Okay. Is there a site plan or a rendering that shows where the 3 spaces are hashed out?
Let me see.
That might help us give some
Yeah.
feedback of where parking
Oh.
might be amenable.
Here's 2
then the one north of that.
and 1 right here.
Is there a way to make South Sandusky one way and add parallel parking?
Yeah.
On South Sandusky
You
Street?
can look at that at one
Yeah,
point in time.
we discussed that as well a long time ago, but we
Didn't
never
go anywhere though, but why?
I don't remember why,
Yeah, me either.
but I would love that.
Is there a way to add some additional parking here?
We don't own that.
These are, yeah.
If we did, then yes, but
We tried, but
yeah,
it didn't
if we
work
could
out.
make that street one way, that would be a massive help.
Wave a wand.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
we did,
The
that was
state may have
discussed.
something to say about that considering it's right next
Afraid
to
you're probably
315.
correct.
Again, I'm not sure what the maneuverability would be, but if there was a reduction in some of the raised bed spaces.
I don't think we have enough.
A nice outdoor section.
What is that where your hand just was?
This
No, up there, up high.
That's the
The-
pollinator garden.
is pollinator.
That's the whole
That's
pollinator garden.
tables, landscaping, yes.
Time we had
Okay.
park
If
space.
that was,
road, didn't we?
like, right, like we're still
3, 4,
we're still
5.
providing us
We might
something.
have, yeah.
I thought so.
So there's been many versions, so we too get confused. And one of the versions, we had parallel parking on Grub Street adjacent to the building.
Mhm.
And we kind of did like a bump out, so that it delineated it as parking. It wasn't like a drive lane. That's probably something that would be relatively easy. Wouldn't like warrant necessarily an entire redesign of the site, but still could add. I don't remember how many we had. We'd have to look in the old stuff. But that at one point in time, like that,
Would that be in the 2022
I
submission?
think so.
Okay. I think these are just side by sides. I'd have to go back into
Yeah,
the other systems.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that was a thing we did.
That feels good. I'm just like 3 spaces just is not feasible. There's emergency. You know,
Rough numbers, 10 would probably be about where, yeah, I
10 feels feasible.
We could talk
That's less than 10.
the traffic and see about like, because we do own all the property on the east side of the site, right? So from between Chapel and town, I know there's issues like you can't have parking spaces a certain distance from a stop sign or, so we could take all that into consideration. But if we could park parallel spaces or even, I don't know, angle probably take up too much room, but parallel spaces, that might get us pretty close. Yeah. I don't know, you think you know more about the traffic.
And there might be 4 additional spaces. we
Okay,
could
well, that's something.
So that's 7 in total.
7.
Mhm.
That's a lot more than 4 or 3.
Yeah. I think 10 sounds like where we'd really like to see things. Maybe there's,
Well, what about the parking in front of the single family house? Because those tenants can park immediately out, on Whitechapel. Or
Oh, they'll
West-
have, Okay.
To the north of the single family, those two units, you know, they would easily have access to that.
When
So,
people did have cars or people came to visit them,
Mhm.
I mean, I like the Gorilla Park, right? So I'd probably park on Chapel and walk through the garden, come to the building that way. Because you can't park on Town. And, you know, people
Yeah.
might not think to do that, but that's what I would do.
I think on that one-way strip of grub over there, I don't know if they're.
Yeah.
Drive over there.
Well, I'd say, let us look at the site plans that we had parallel spaces on Grub. We can have the conversation about Sandusky if that's something that you guys would be supportive of.
Mhm.
I don't know, like that's way out of, it's above our pay grade, right? So we gotta, I think Bill's right. We probably have to talk to ODOT too. And so that make,
It might have been the limited access right away.
yeah, I think it should be. That sounds familiar, but we'll look into it again. And it may, but just warning you, Sandusky's probably not a viable thing because of ODOT, but Grub should be.
So one thing we're asking for then, like we have a consensus on this, we're asking them to at least make an effort towards 10 spaces
Yes, that would be
in
nice.
the next submission, right?
That's a, yes.
Knowing that there might be a next submission too, do we talk about Kim's notes?
I think
And
we should start.
as you're going back, you know, Kim, and he'll probably be at the next meeting, let's assume he'll be here. And he really is mentioning how we gave the increased height and density based on the quality of the submission back in 2022. And he is still feeling like the design, I will use his words, is a budget hotel and not consistent with the neighborhood. We don't have a ton of elaboration on what that is, but that's,
The windows in the balcony. I mean,
Okay.
it's that simple. I remember that
Mhm.
from talking. when
or if there's anything
Saying,
else, and anything that sits with, I assume that this might come back up. So even,
I'm sure you're right.
just want to, if you're going back and just relooking at a few
Yeah.
things,
Now, we could talk about it internally and see if there's something we can come up with that, look, we're not going to build the building that he wants. And like, he knows that, I think too.
Sure.
But he's going to push because he feels strongly and that's okay. But we can think about what can we do that's, you know, budget conscious and yet tries to address some of those concerns and, you know, see if we can meet in the middle.
and when he's talking about, you know, consistent within neighborhood, maybe just, again, look at what is currently there, and
That's the
No.
thing about the neighborhood, it's inconsistent.
it is, yeah.
It's like, I don't know how to take that note.
Little neighborhood,
Right.
so, and again, this will be a unique building in our neighborhood, but that would, yeah, so.
We created guidelines last year where we approved like base materials, right? I wasn't here for that meeting, but I remember that being a meeting.
No specific materials. The guidelines just say high quality materials.
This is Hardy. And the Hardy has been approved since
Yes.
2022.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I mean, other than balconies,
Yeah,
can
no,
you give a little bit more guidance to what you're looking for? Because
Can we look at cut sheets from 2022 submission and now? Because that might help us.
it's the same brick, it's the same Hardy. We did not change any of the materiality from the previous
I
submission.
don't think materials are the issue.
No.
If they're using hardy and the materials they're talking.
And I was going to say, from staff's standpoint, typically when we say high quality materials, we just don't really like to see a lot of vinyl.
A lot of what?
A lot of vinyl. We don't want to see vinyl.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or chain link fencing.
Right, so as far as the cut sheets go.
Yeah, I would have to go back and
Yeah,
look in the
that's it.
22 submission.
Verify, and they are the
They're the
exact
same.
ones.
I thought so.
So can you zoom in a little, Nolan, so we
Sure.
can, just a bigger version of this?
Absolutely.
One thing that I'm gonna assume Kim's referring to is like, in 2022, there's a lot of vertical articulation,
Mhm.
right? So it kind of breaks up the building visually.
Mhm.
And then there's less of that in 2025, right? So it looks like bigger pieces of Hardy or what, you know, but it, you know, but it's just a trick of the eye. I wonder if there's something can we
Yeah, I
just
see what you're saying.
do smaller pieces maybe so that it has more?
Yeah.
Is on the 2022 submission on the first two floors, is that fascia brick or hardy?
That was brick.
Yeah, I think
Right.
we did lower the brick. So on the new version, I think we only have 3 feet of brick, and then we added brown hardy to mimic the brick. And that was a cost consideration.
Mhm.
We are, and it's really subtle. We do see those recesses, those vertical recesses on the current version. We were just going to recess by, like 3/4 of an inch just to get some more articulation. It's really hard to see on that flat rendering. But there is a little bit more articulation based compared to last month's iteration. We are really just trying to,
Remember what we did at the Frisbee where we added like a little articulation to the roof line?
yeah, we can do, a molding along the top of the,
Give it a little,
Parapet.
yeah, so it doesn't just feel like it falls off at the top. So,
or we can do eyebrows, if that would help.
yeah,
Um,
that might be.
If you were saying about breaking it up, I think you, again, I can't speak for Kim,
Right.
but I wonder if that might steer a little further in the direction of what he's thinking. And I wonder if, while it might not be financially feasible to provide balconies for all the units or even majority of the units, is there, would you be willing to go back to the drawing board to see if you could create some symmetry within the building for some balconies? Might not be all the balconies that you had in 2022, and it might not even be 40%, 30%.
Well, we could explore it.
Or 20%.
I can,
And see if maybe that might move the needle a little closer to in the middle. Does that make sense?
yeah, no, yeah, it's definitely something we can explore.
There's some other ways of dealing with verticality as well.
Yeah.
Boy, when I look at those two pictures, the brick versus the hardy, the hardy paneling over there is a bit jarring. Boy, it'd be nice. It would be nice. Oh, everybody agrees with me. And then I'm stepping way out of my line of expertise here. Commenting on architecture, but
Look, I mean, not for nothing. I don't love the brown hardy either, but it was an attempt to try to mimic what did it get approved in 2022. So in some ways, as I'm looking at it right now, and you guys tell me if you agree, what if the hardy became white again, right? And so we did a little bit of brick at the bottom, or maybe that's not even important. It just, but we're clinging to something that no longer exists for maybe a reason that doesn't make any sense, right? And so if the building was just white and gray and we had murals,
Kim would scream if he came back with white and gray.
yeah,
I think he would scream.
well,
I
it's worth a
think
shot.
I think there was something interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't notice it, but you said trip of an eye, and that is kind of what's happening on it.
Mhm.
And I do see what he's saying. It does kind of look like a hotel. Like this is kind of what hotels sometimes look like to me. So I do understand that. It's also outside of my expertise, so I can't tell you what that is or how to, but it does kind of have a hotel vibe to it. And it could be as simple as a trip of an eye that we're stuck on.
Yeah, I mean,
So just that, yeah, maybe.
I don't know if it'll, I mean, I'm not sure I'm going to convince Kim of this, but of any of this, but that's okay. Because as he said last time, I'm only one vote, right? But he's also going to push issues that maybe end up with a better quality design. So that I'm open to those conversations. And yeah, let's explore that verticality and see what it does. And, and it might make a difference, at least for some of us. I don't know.
Sure.
It's worth a shot, right? It's not something that's going to break the budget. So I think it feels like kind of win-win. And we could talk about some other stuff, like internally, just what can we come up with? Certainly, if you guys have any other ideas, we'd love to hear them, but while we're here,
I know we've given a lot of feedback, but I really, from my perspective, I really do appreciate the addition of the outdoor space and being intentional
Yeah,
with
I really
creating
do.
that. If balconies on the whole, 2022 wasn't feasible, that at least there was some thought and consideration that went in,
Mhm.
that how can we still provide a high quality space for our residents. So I do very much appreciate and commend you for thinking outside the box and creating something
Thank you.
really nice like that for the residents. I don't think I have any
I
other
don't have
suggestions. I
anything.
think it feels comprehensive and that
Mhm.
the feedback that we've given.
If we may well talk this out.
Mhm.
Okay, well, Chair moves to continue the application. Have a second.
A second.
Moved and seconded to continue the application.
Okay.
Call roll, please.
Mr. Fergus,
Approved.
Ms. Crowley,
Approved.
Ms. Schmidt, and Ms. Benner.
Approve.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
See you next month.
Just for quick clarity, just want to make sure that you have what you need going forward.
I can watch the YouTube.
Okay,
live.
perfect.
That's okay.
Perfect. Okay.
No further.
Just double
business.
checking.
We are adjourned.
Great. Thank you.
Watch the YouTube.
Thanks,
I didn't even
everybody.
need it.
Thank you.
I was watching the